I couldn't help but laugh. Of course, it was Eddie. He was always online, even at the most random times. Maybe this night wouldn't be a total waste after all. "Hey Eddie, what are you up to?" I typed, leaning back in my chair. I figured he'd be up to something typical, probably lounging around like the rest of us. I stared at the screen for a good 10 to 15 seconds before the little chat bubble popped up. "Hey Lex, how are you doing, buddy? What are you doing on your computer?" "It's New Year's," I snorted. Of course, he'd play it off all casual. My grades were crap, so I'm grounded. "Why are you on?" I shot back, keeping it short and hoping for something juicy. This time, the pause was shorter. "I'm not actually on my computer. I'm in my car. It's the New Year 00 race." My eyebrows shot up, and I made this stupid, semi-shocked face at the screen as if the pixels cared. He was where? Doing what? This was better than I could have hoped. Eddie Chang, notorious liar, and here he was again with a story that smelled like a whole lot of bull. The New Year 00 race sounded like something straight out of a bad action movie. I sat there, shaking my head, trying not to laugh. "The hell is the New Year 00 race?" I typed, already knowing this was about to spiral into something outrageous. That's the thing with Eddie. When he got started, you just had to sit back and enjoy the ride. Again, it took Eddie a little while to respond. Typical Eddie, always leaving you hanging, making you wonder if he was crafting some epic response or just got distracted by a squirrel. But after about 30 seconds, his reply finally popped up on the screen. "It's a 100-mile race through the 5 boroughs. Elite racers only," he said. "There's no set path, just certain markers you need to clear." Which means I don't even know what position I'm in, but I think I've got the best path to hit all the markers. Haven't seen any other racers taking this route. I left the last guy I saw about 10 miles after the start. I nearly fell out of my chair, howling with laughter. Not that I couldn't believe there might be some underground race tearing through New York City on New Year's Eve. I mean, this is the same city that has pizza rats and flash mobs, so anything's possible. But the idea of Eddie Chang, of all people, being one of those elite racers, absolutely priceless. Before I go any further, let me take a minute to explain how I met Eddie. Because trust me, you need the backstory to fully appreciate just how hilarious this whole thing really is. Eddie was one of my floor mates on the 5th floor of Lawrence Dormitory. I remember the first time I saw him, during our introductory floor meeting. You know the drill. Everyone sitting around in a circle, awkwardly nodding while the RA rattles off the rules. I saw all of my floor mates that day, but I didn't actually meet most of them until later. Eddie, though, was one of the first I met. Earlier that day, I'd scoped out the student center and noticed a bunch of pool tables. Naturally, after the floor meeting, I grabbed my pool stick and headed down there. See, pool's one of my absolute favorite games. A whole different kind of strategy, skill, and a bit of luck. I was a few shots into my game when Eddie walked in. He gave me a nod, the universal sign of I play too, and before I knew it, we were chalking up our cues and setting up the balls. Eddie was awful at pool, like truly abysmal. The kind of bad that makes you wonder if he's holding the cue stick for the first time in his life. But what really stood out wasn't just his lack of skill, it was his mouth. Within minutes, I had him pegged as a grade A liar. He went on and on about how he was a pool shark back home, how he'd left his real pool stick behind because apparently Syracuse wasn't ready for his greatness. He kept eyeing my stick like it was Excalibur or something, then said, "Oh yeah, that's a nice one, but my McDermott back home? It's a beauty. Now, I'm no expert on pool stick brands. I bought mine because it looked cool hanging on the wall at the pool hall back home. But even I could tell he was trying way too hard to impress me. Eddie blamed his lousy game on the beat-up, warped sticks in the rec hall. When I offered to let him use mine, he waved it off with a straight face and said, "I never use another man's stick." "Sure, Eddie, whatever you say, buddy." Eventually, the conversation shifted to where we were from. I told him my parents were divorced, and I lived with my dad in Jersey. He said he was from Brooklyn. Since my mom lived in Queens, I knew the area pretty well, and I thought, okay, at least we've got that in common. But then we started talking about cars. Freshmen weren't allowed to have cars on campus, and to be honest, we didn't really need them. Everything was within walking distance. That's when Eddie's lying went into overdrive. He started describing his car in such vivid detail that it could have been straight out of a magazine spread. A Toyota Supra, tricked out with all the bells and whistles. At the time, this meant nothing to me, but when The Fast and the Furious came out later, I nearly fell out of my seat in the theater. The car he'd described was practically a carbon copy of Paul Walker's ride in the movie, and this was before anyone even knew that film existed. I'll admit, his description of that car made me a little envious. I'd been to plenty of car shows and races in high school, and owning a street racing car was the dream. But when I asked Eddie if I could see this mythical beast sometime, he just shrugged and said it was in the shop. Oh, of course, in the shop. For 3 months. Right. I didn't even bother calling him out. By then, I'd already written him off as a serial fabulist. Which brings us back to our current conversation. So Eddie's out there, supposedly racing in this 00 race in his souped-up Toyota Supra, all while having a casual instant messenger chat with me. Yeah, sure, why not? I wasn't going to press him for details on what was clearly another one of his wild tales. Honestly, I was bored and grounded. Might as well let him spin his fantasy. At least it was entertaining. I didn't have anything better to do.